How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. You can find me on Twitter, as always, at Dalton_Trigg. Today, I have a special guest, return guest. He has done some work for us at DallasBasketball.com in the past. We are always hitting him up around draft time, draft lottery time, because he knows way more about these prospects than we do, keeps up with them throughout the year, knows all their strengths, weaknesses, all that good stuff. It's my guy, Richard Stayman. You can find him at Mavs Draft on Twitter. Richard, what's up, man? How are you doing? It's been too long.
Hey, I'm excited to be back. I want to say the last time I was here may or may not have been November 18th, 2020, which was, and you asked who are the Dallas Mavericks going to draft. And I unfortunately, in hindsight, I wish I hadn't predicted it. No offense to Josh Green, but, you were like, should they take Desmond Bane or Josh Green? I'm like, I think they're going to take Josh Green. And I wish, if that was the influence, if this podcast is the influence, I will speak things into existence a little bit better.
Hey, I didn't realize it was quite that long, but I mean, to be fair, I haven't had many guests on here lately. I've just been, and a lot of times I've just been doing this thing solo here lately, doing like daily updates on NBA playoff action and throughout the season. It gets hard to coordinate stuff, especially in season, when you're trying to put out a bunch of content fast. So I definitely didn't realize it had been that long, but I'm glad we finally have you back. And if the last time, is any indicator, this should be good luck. So I'm hoping you're saying the Mavs win the lottery and they're getting Victor Wembanyama. But look, I guess we'll start right there, Richard, because that's the guy everybody is, everybody in the lottery is hoping that they are able to select after Tuesday's lottery drawing. It's happening Tuesday, May 16th. The Mavs have a 3% chance of getting Victor Wembanyama. They have a 13.9% chance of jumping into the top four. They have nearly an 80% chance of keeping their pick regardless. 80% chance it's either going to be number 10 or somewhere in the 1 through 4 range. So let's start with him. Let's start with Victor Wembanyama. Is he going to live up to the hype? Because everything I've seen, it sure does tell me that he's going to live up to the hype.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that really can get in his way is injuries. And it's been, I think now almost a year and a half, 2 years removed since his last injury. And, some of it might have been attributed to growing pains. I mean, granted, the guy never really stops growing. I think really with him, he's the best prospect on paper we've ever seen. I still think at the end of the day, when you evaluate everything, LeBron is still number one I've ever seen, at least this century. And with Wembanyama, though, the way I've always sold him is, look, if you went on 2K, I know it's like a very cheesy way to say it, but like if you went on 2K and then said, all right, I'm sick of getting killed every game, whatever, I'm going to make somebody who is unguardable, like not my player, but like a 2K created player, put him at max height, max ball skills. Like he has the potential quite literally to be that. It's not exaggeration. It is very real. And you don't find the combination of just the elite height. Obviously, it might be a little bit too much height. That's a big concern for people, but you don't find that combination plus ball skills, plus feel and motor. All of it, all the intangibles are there, skills are there, and the athleticism and height are there.
People can debate, about the level of prospect compared to LeBron, but it's no doubt that he is the most hyped prospect since LeBron, in my opinion. And I mean, a lot of it's warranted too, based on the highlights you see, like missing a 3-pointer and then following up his miss on a 3-pointer with a dunk. It's just unreal stuff from him. But you mentioned the height, you mentioned the concerns with injuries because of that, because I mean, there's really just not that many guys, 7'2", 7'3", and taller that have good luck with their injury history. So, that's a concern. When you have longer ligaments and longer bones and stuff like that, it's bound to happen at some point. But I've read some stuff, and I think it was ESPN's Jonathan. Is it Giovanni? Am I saying that right?
Giovanni.
Okay. Yeah. Had to put a little own in there. But I was reading something from him earlier in the season saying that, Victor Wembanyama had been working out with Holger Dirk's longtime mentor and was doing certain things with his stretches and certain exercises to potentially or to hopefully minimize his chances of getting hurt. Uh, do you know any? I mean, have you heard any more about that, or do you think that that kind of stuff can help, or is it just like a physical thing that's unavoidable at some point?
I think a combination of both. I think he could, first of all, in this era of basketball, I mean, generally injuries are treated more seriously where it's like playing through it is less and less common. I mean, the load management era is a very real thing. But on top of that, I mean, yeah, he has had real injuries, but I do think having just the elite of elite taking care of your body and the trainings and things like that. I mean, LeBron's a prime example of that. Like for most of his career, he's been one of the healthiest superstars we've seen in this era. And I think a lot of that has to do with how he takes care of his body. I think the same thing applies to Wembanyama. And a lot of Wembanyama's past injuries, outside of he fractured his fibula in 2020. Outside of that, he really hasn't had any major injuries. It's been a fractured finger that could happen quite literally to any player at any time. It has nothing to do with his height. He missed 2 months with a shoulder contusion. Not really sure what to say on that one. And then he hurt his, I can't say the muscle name. It's basically your pelvis. It begins with a P, next letter's an S. I can't really say it, but I'm not even going to try. It took me a while to learn how to say Wembanyama. I'm not even going to try that.
Hey, so, I thought you were going in another direction there. So,
I realized how to set myself
up. Well, look, he's the big reward. Whoever gets number one, he's surefire number one. I don't think there's going to be any, weird stuff happen like last year. You didn't hear that Banchero was going number one until like the last second when, the rumors started happening. And next thing you know, he's a member of the Orlando Magic. I don't think any of that's going to happen this year. I really think he's surefire, definitely going number one. When you get to number two, number three, though, there's more debates about that, at least from the mock drafts I've seen. And like I said, the Mavs have a 13.9% chance of jumping into the top four, 3% chance at number one, 3.3% chance at number two, 3.6% for number three, and then a flat 4% chance to get number four. So my next question for you is, say the Mavs get 2, 3, or 4. Who are the next 3 top prospects in your mind after Wembanyama?
Yeah, so I'll just read off the board because after 2 and 3, it changes for the Mavs. So I have Scoot Henderson. He would be the number one pick in a lot of recent drafts. Just a very complete floor general point guard that can play defense, has an outstanding frame.
Very good.
He's ridiculous. He's super fun. He's so advanced in the pick and roll. Like he is a 23-year-old and an 19-year-old's body. He'll be 19 for his first 60 games of his next season. And then Brandon Miller's right after that. He is a very, very strong off-ball player with defensive upside, 3-level scoring and creation potential. It's a little bit far away, but then after that, there's a drop-off. That's where it starts to be, you could pick your poison. Amen Thompson personally is my number 4 because even though he did play overtime elite, he's 20 years old. Just to contextualize that, Mike Miles, a junior at TCU, who is probably going to get drafted in the second round, is 4 months older and is a junior in college. So like Amen Thompson, the Thompson twins, him and his brother Asar, both of them are behind the curve age-wise. They have very limited margin for error because of that. But with Amen Thompson, I'm very confident. The defense is good. His ability to run and pick and roll is just advanced beyond his years, and I think that scales up so quickly.
Our guy Kirk Henderson over at Mavs Moneyball, he has his own show and he comes on here every now and then, but he's been telling me about the Thompson brothers like throughout the season and saying like that's 2 of his favorite prospects. And, I mean, look, I'm not gonna lie, I don't keep up with college basketball other than my Southern Miss Golden Eagles, who had a very good season this past year. By the way, they went from they won more games this last season than they did over the previous 3 or 4 seasons. So shout out to them. But
the Sun Belt.
But other than that, yeah, first year in the Sun Belt and got the regular season championship in the Sun Belt. So good for them. But other than that, I just don't really keep up with college basketball other than watching the general highlights that come on. So this is why you're here, Richard. I'm glad you're here to talk about all these guys and, give us a little bit of an idea of, where they'll fall at and who the Mavs actually have a chance at. So So look, 14% chance, almost 14% chance Mavs get into the top 4, 3% chance getting the number 1 pick. We know that that's, it's not likely, but they do have a chance. They've never moved up in franchise history. You'd think at some point they'd have some little bit of luck in the lottery, but the odds don't really think that way. That's more of just like a superstitious thing on our end. So, I mean, that's what I'm hoping for. But the most likely scenario is the Mavs keeping their spot at number 10. They have a 65.9% chance of having the 10th pick. And so that's what's most likely. That's why all these mock drafts, they're proceeding with the idea that they're going to be at number 10. And I've seen a handful of different guys, slated in these mock drafts to go to the Mavs, but I'm wondering, like Walker from the Houston Cougars, I think he would be a really good fit for the Mavs, especially based on some of their biggest needs, rebounding, rim protection. He's only 6'8", but what is his wingspan? Like 7'2", 7, yeah, long. He's got a very long wingspan, and he's big too. Like he's got a body that seems like it's already NBA ready. So, and he's only 19. So that's a guy who I've seen, people saying the Mavs might have a chance. I don't think he's going to make it to number 10 though. Talk about Walker a little bit, and then maybe, a couple of guys that's more realistic for the Mavs to select at number 10, if they end up getting that pick.
Yeah. Everyone talks about Jarris Walker and Taylor Hendricks. They've been rising so much over the last 2 months. It's unfortunate because I think a month ago, Taylor Hendricks, like people just didn't watch. Sorry to change the subject off of Jarris right away. They're in the same conference. I'll be back. But Taylor Hendricks, for example, he was at University of Central Florida. They weren't covered. Houston, on the other end, I mean, they were a Sweet 16 team, and they were a 1 seed. Like everybody knew Jarris Walker, so like his stock had already been high. Taylor Hendricks isn't going to be there because he's behind the curve. But for Jarris, I mean, you said it. His defense is just everything checks. Every box is checked. I think he has actually the perfect height to be the modern defender. 6'8", 6'9", long wingspan, can play 1 through 5 truly on the defensive end. It's not like your full-time center, but when you go, we've seen this for now 10 plus years. The small ball 5 is a real thing. Like that stuff matters, and he's going to be a good small ball 5. On top of that, though, he's a connecting piece on offense. He's just he plays almost. I think he's going to thrive a little bit in that he's not Draymond, but like that role where it's like, hey, we need a forward who he's unselfish, connects everything. The offense flows more smoothly when he's out there than not. And those kind of guys, they're ceiling raisers. Like that's a guy who you go from second round team to championship team because of him. And I think just everything you said about his defense is right. Feel for the game is there. He guards the perimeter, locks down, guards the rim, locks down, guards mid-range very well. You won't see him not try. There's just so much to like. The only downside really for him is shooting. The shooting numbers just aren't strong. Free throw percentage is below 70%. And just statistically speaking, players who have been drafted over the last 10 years that shot below 67%, which is what he did, almost none of them have become good shooters in the NBA. So there is that. You have to be aware, hey, his shooting might just be below average. And if you can live with that, that's fine.
Which I mean, to be honest, Draymond Green, his shooting isn't exactly there, but he's a huge and that's really when I was watching his, because I think it was NBC Sports. It was I think it was a mock draft they put out last week, and they had Walker at 10 going to the Mavs, and I was thinking like probably not going to happen because I haven't kept up with it too much, but I did watch him in the tournament, and I've seen highlights and everything, and my first thought is like this looks like another Draymond player. And I do like his shot, his shot form and everything, but I would love for the Mavs to get a guy like him. And I guess I want to branch off from this and say, and I like Taylor Hendricks too, but say the Mavs end up getting the 4th pick in the draft. Do you take one of the Thompson twins, or do you consider moving back a few spots, adding some more assets, and get a guy like Walker, who would be available in that probably 5-6 range? What would you do? Because I've always been a big advocator for take the best talent available. But in the Mavs specific situation right now, their asset cupboard is low. They don't have many, aside from this year's pick, if they keep it, the next pick they can trade is 2027 because they've already traded the 2029 pick to get Kyrie Irving. That's unprotected pick. They just really don't have that many assets to work with going forward through the rest of Luka's current contract. So what would you do? What would you take the best player available at like in that 3-4 range, or would you try to trade back a few spots to add a few more key pieces and still get a very high talented top 10 pick?
Wait. Are you telling me Davis Bertans' partially guaranteed contract next year doesn't move you?
It doesn't. It does.
I'm stunned. I've been told for months that's an attractive. Hey, throw him in with the first. It's fine. But on the real though, like I think it's a tough question. I don't look. I'll give them the current Mavs since the last like 2 years a good benefit of the doubt in development. They did a good job getting Josh Green to take the jump. He's still got a long ways to go though. And Jaden Hardy, I think, has been seen. People think they handled it poorly because the first half of the season, but I actually think they handled it perfectly. He got in rhythm. They did a really good job of getting him going, at least for the second half, and they developed him mid-season, I feel like. And because of that, it makes me a little bit confident they could develop someone like Amen Thompson. The problem is the adjustment from, I mean, he's playing in high school. It's like not quite high school. It's a little bit better than high school, but still high school-ish. And that jump to be an NBA point guard from that is not going to be easy. And yeah, he may have some defensive value, but you're looking at a bench player. I don't think at the top 5 for this team, I mean, he's a bench player. I think you can't take that. I would say trade back. I think Jarris Walker and Taylor Hendricks, you can't take him at 4. You might as well move back to 5 or 6, get some assets, and get your guy. And the Mavs, like you said, they don't have any draft capital. You would get at least 1 first-round pick, or if you want to defer a pick, you can get a player probably that a team's desperate to get off of, and one of those teams moving up. So I would say if you get 4, that's honestly the dream. You can move back to wherever you want, and you finally can get some draft capital to make trades realistic again.
Yeah. I mean, they're just in a situation where they need more than what they can realistically do in one off season. So if you have a situation come up like that where you do get lucky and you get a top 4 pick, now if it's number 1, obviously you take Victor and run and don't think about it. But anything aside from that, you have to consider moving down to add more pieces. And I like Hendricks and Walker, but I just feel like I don't know. I like that Walker is 240 and just looks like he can, bang with the best of them and not get thrown around as a rookie, even though he's 19 years old. I feel like he's ready. I feel like he can contribute from day one and be a key piece. So I'm looking forward to the lottery and seeing how all this plays out. And once we actually know where the Mavs are at, we can kind of focus in more on specific prospects. And then obviously we have the combine coming up and, all that stuff. Guys' stock will rise and fall a little bit here and there. And it seems like there's always one guy that kind of comes out of nowhere and gets valued a lot higher than what people initially thought he would. So we'll have to see how it goes, but I'm excited for it. I will be glued to my television on Tuesday. And I hope that the Mavs finally have some lottery luck because they didn't send me to the lottery to represent them. Even though I asked for it, and my guy Michael Mulford, he's contributed with us for about a year here at DallasBasketball.com. Now he wrote a piece before Mark Stein, 4 minutes before Mark Stein broke the news. He wrote a piece listing all these people that the Mavs should send to the lottery, and he threw me in there. And then 4 minutes later, Stein comes out and just throws water over it and says, "Oh, well, they're sending Nico Harrison." But hey, the last couple times they were in the lottery, it was 2017. Dennis Smith Jr. So I believe they had the 9th best odds and they stayed there. And then for the Luka draft, they had the 3rd best odds and moved back to 5th and had to spend a 2019 first round pick to make up for that. And Michael Finley was the representative at both of those lotteries. So maybe Nico Harrison is the change that the Mavs need.
Hey, and don't forget that with the 2018, they won the coin flip with who I forget who it was. I want to say it was the Hawks. And all of that, like, it was the most Mavs thing. It was the closest they've ever been in the history of the franchise to moving up, and only just to move. It was like it's like in White Men Can't Jump or whatever it's called. I think that's what it is. I'm blanking on which movie it is. That where it's like she's like, sometimes when you win, you lose, and that's exactly what happened. It was the most frustrating thing. I vividly remember that moment.
The Mavs just have the worst lottery history. I don't want. Well, I'm probably being a homer when I say it, but just based on the ones I've seen, it's just like I don't see how they have as bad of luck as they do. Because then, even after the Luka draft, after all of that, you had to spend the extra first round pick to move up and get Luka, and you got him. But then the next year, you had a 3-way tie with the Grizzlies and the Pelicans. And the Grizzlies and the Pelicans end up moving up to 1 and 2 to get Zion and Ja Morant. And the Mavs end up moving down, I think, and not keeping the pick. So
shout out Salah Medri.
Oh man, Salah and Devin Harris. They really did a number on us that year. Well, Richard, this is going to be my last topic here, and I'll get you out of here. But there's been a lot of talk about the Mavs and Kyrie Irving, and how much should they pay him, and is it a good idea? Is it a bad idea? Regardless of if it's a good idea or a bad idea, I think they're going to end up paying him a lot of money. He's their top priority this summer. I don't see the market for him being, anything to where he could leave easily. If he wants to go to another contender, like if he wanted to go to the Phoenix Suns, or if he wanted to go to the Los Angeles Lakers or something like that, it's going to be harder now with the new CBA. It's not teams that have multiple max players and they're in that first and second tax bracket. It makes it harder to do sign and trade stuff now. So I don't really see that happening, even though there's been some smoke around it. But I mean, what are your thoughts on Kyrie Irving situation, how it went since the trade? How much do you put on the pairing between him and Luka Doncic, and, more so like I do, I just think it's the people around them. I think they gutted their depth a little too much, and, they have to find a way to build around those two now. But what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyrie was actually really good when he was here. I think if you went down the chain of who needs to be assigned blame, Kyrie might be the one Mav that actually gets kind of a pass. Like, it's not his fault the Mavs didn't have depth, and then they traded all their remaining depth for him. Like, you can't blame him for that.
Feel the same way.
And, like, I get it. Like, personally, I'm not a huge fan of him as a person, but, like, you can't use that to justify what he did on the basketball court. Like, I think you have to keep him at all costs. The idea of him is still very good when you give him a full summer with Luka Doncic, and for the Mavs to recoup their roster. Like, again, it's just not his fault that JaVale McGee was their big offseason signing. And then JaVale McGee played his most important basketball down the final 10 games when they were tanking. Like, I feel like there's so much that they have to fix. And really with the Mavs, it's re-sign Kyrie, fix your depth. You got to address that, because they already had some of the worst depth, I would say, of any playoff team, arguably the worst, before the trade deadline. And then they like you said, they gutted it. They went from bad to the worst of any team competing for that final play-in spot or above. Nobody on either conference had a worst built, roster top to bottom. And it's just really unfortunate. They got to take the draft serious. I think that's a big way to do it. And obviously, if they keep it 10, that's a way to do it. Add a second round pick like they did last year for Jaden Hardy. They've just got a lot of long ways to go filling out the roster, really like 6 or 7 down to 15, and really technically 17 or 18 with the two ways.
Yeah, I mean, by the numbers, at least the offensive numbers, Luka and Kyrie together were putting up like historical offensive numbers. So that's not an issue. But, the team's defense, even before they traded Finney-Smith, wasn't great this year. They were like between that 18 to 21 range for most of the year before.
I mean, on NBA.com, they were 24th before the trade. They went down to 28th after. Like, it wasn't like they went, they were like, oh, we were some great defense. They went from bad to some of the worst.
Yeah. So, I mean, you were already just, barely hanging on there. And then, after that, after you got rid of Finney-Smith and you add Kyrie, who's not really known. I mean, I think he's a better defender than Dinwiddie. I think Dinwiddie I've seen his defense get hyped up a good bit by people, but I'm just like, I don't see it. He's lost so much time, but after they lost Finney Smith, it just bottomed out. And so now they have to address that. I do expect Josh Green to take a step forward again this summer. Loved his progression this year. What he showed this year is more of what I expected, from the beginning with him. We all knew his defense was there and he had to work on his shot. And he finally got a chance to play when Rick Carlisle left. So excited about him. Super excited about Jaden Hardy. Looked like a star in the last, fourth of the season for a second round pick, number 37 pick. I think if we had a redraft today, he would probably be a lottery pick in that 2022 draft, in my opinion. So really excited to see what he does. And then, maybe the Mavs can get this thing turned around and have some lottery luck and have everything fall their way for once, because it has been a struggle for the last couple of months for us Mavs people. So, Richard, I appreciate you coming on and talking with me for a little bit. We'll definitely have to do it again sometime, but anything you want to tell the people before we head off, or where they can find your other work and everything?
Yeah, I do big board scouting reports, mock drafts. I do community mock drafts is how I do it now, because I think it's the most accurate. I've had a lot of predictions come true in those. I'll have to have you on sometime to pick for the Mavs at 10. But
hey, just name it.
Perfect. But I'll actually be at the combine this week in Chicago. So maybe if they jump, all I'm saying is, Nico Harrison, if you're listening to this and the Mavs have jumped by the time you're listening to this, I will gladly be your representative in Chicago next year. Actually, no. Actually, not next year. Whoa. Better not be next year.
Yeah. No.
Time comes.
At maybe in 2027 or 28, depending on how the rest of this Luka contract goes. But we're not going to go there. Luka's going to be a Mav for life. Yeah, he's going to be a Mav for life. He's going to be, Dirt 2.0. So we're not going there. Shout out to Luka for making his fourth consecutive All-NBA first team. 4 of those first team appearances in 5 NBA seasons, and he's already tied Dirk for that amount of first All-NBA team. So crazy stuff from him. But Richard, appreciate it. The rest of y'all, appreciate y'all coming in and listening. Be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That automatically enters you for a chance to win future giveaways, ticket giveaways, t-shirts, stuff of that nature. So be sure to go do that. Leave your social media on there so we can find you and let you know if you won. So, guys, appreciate it. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.